You're listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online, and my name is Andrew Mackay-Smith. Hope you're well. Now, the interview subject coming up for you is Mark Heylmun. He's the guitarist in long-running US deathcore forefathers Suicide Silence, and the reason for the chat is to talk up the band's brand new album for 2020. It's called Become the Hunter, and it will be out on Valentine's Day. Something else I'll add just quickly, this is one of those conversations where we talk about all kind of subjects. I love it when a musician goes there, and let me tell you, Mark truly does. He's a damn good bloke and a great guitarist. What more could you want? So here he is, Mark Heylmun from Suicide Silence. Hey, it's Andy Mackay-Smith calling. How you going?
Hey, man, I am good, dude. How are you doing?
Mate, I'm doing very well, and I've got to tell you, brother, I've been looking forward to having a talk to you for some years now, so it's a real thrill to finally get that opportunity.
Fuck yeah, dude. That's cool, man. Well, the pleasure is all mine.
Wonderful. Look, I do rate your guitar playing. I do think you're one of the best riff merchants, if I can use that term, in heavy metal of the last 20 years or so. And I think Suicide Silence's career has more or less been based on so many of the wonderful riffs that you've brought to the table, man. And I don't think you get nearly enough credit for it, to be honest with you. And the first example that I'm going to use for you is the absolutely killer riff that you've used here on Two Steps on Become the Hunter, mate. Where did that one come from?
I think, shit, dude. I don't know, man. I think that song came out of inspiration of playing a live show and trying to get circle pits going. I mean, if you're talking about like the intro riff, like the fucking
yeah, that's killer. Yep.
Like that's like a combination of like Dying Fetus and Sepultura and fucking Slipknot. Like,
yeah,
all just kind of like jumbled into one to try and get some fucking pits going. Like, that's straight up where it's at.
Yeah, I've said this a few times. There's yourself, Travis from Amur. You've got him.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you guys are following in the footsteps of the Great Dime. You know, I mean, ever since he's gone, man, there's just been this hunger. As you no doubt well aware, I mean, you're up there on stage, you're seeing people reacting to the wonderful riffs that you've produced and now playing, and you're seeing that reaction, man. So people just connect with really gnarly, well-written, well-crafted, brutal riffage, you know, and there's not enough written about it or spoken about it, I don't think, and I'm talking to one of the premier riff merchants in the world, man, and as I say, I just don't think the Guitar Worlds and the Ultimate Guitars and the Guitars for Practicing Musician, if that magazine is still going, I don't know whether they are anymore. I haven't read them in years, mate. But do these?
I don't do that.
do these guitar magazines and publications, online or otherwise, do they reach out to you for conversations and really want you to dive into your technique and tone?
The thing is I've done Guitar World and all the Ultimate Guitar and all that stuff. The thing is that the people, you know, as you probably know too, like there's guitar players and guitar playing and the guitar media, but then there's metal guitar media. And the real, you know, guitar media, I think, is still very much in the Billy Gibbons, Jimi Hendrix, Jimmy Page, no disrespect.
Van Halen, yeah, I get it.
That's what got me fucking playing guitar. But when it really comes down to like the media of guitar, it hasn't really jumped to, you know, giving the praise to a lot of the modern guys, except for people maybe like Tosin Abasi or Misha, and like obviously all these people deserve the credit they get. But I think that when it comes to extreme like deathcore or death metal and stuff like that, I don't think that the guitar media or the big ones, I don't think they've jumped over to guys like us yet.
Yeah, I know. I don't understand that, mate, because you guys are the ones that are selling, because of your endorsements, and you'd know this through ESP. I'm sure they'd probably share with you some of the numbers. Because of you guys, you're actually getting people into guitar, and that's really important. I talk a lot about that on my podcast, is that there are some guitarists out there that just never get the credit, like yourself, who have inspired so many young hands to pick up the guitar and to give it a bit of a crack. And look, I'm 41, so I don't even remember Hendrix. You know what I'm saying? Hendrix was being written about as a
Yeah.
classic artist in the 90s, but there's so many. I can't mention all of them, okay? But you know where I'm headed because you're on firmly in this basket that they seem to ignore, and I just don't get it. I mean, how many times, and I mean this with the greatest of respect and reverence, can Van Halen be on a cover of a guitar publication or the lead article in a guitar publication when I just don't think the kids are into that, mate? And I've got to be frank about this, you know, and I think there's retro thing going on within heavy metal where I see 14-year-olds wearing Judas Priest t-shirts and Iron Maiden t-shirts. I can kind of understand that because people such as yourself have been very vociferous in terms of giving praise to the great masters, as I call them. There, but I think they've got to move on, man, and they've got to realise that if you actually follow the money too, it's you guys that are actually keeping the industry afloat.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think that, where you said you don't think that the kids are necessarily interested in some of those older and greater people, I don't think the kids are necessarily interested in Guitar World or Ultimate Guitar.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they really, or Guitar One. I don't even know if that exists anymore. I mean, I grew up, going to, the magazine section of anywhere I was and reading Guitar World. And that's definitely where I was at, but I don't think that is where the kids are at anymore. They're going on YouTube and they're looking up who's got a YouTube channel or who is, playing guitar on their Instagram page. And, it's almost not needed to be in those magazines. It's cool for me to I do have a Guitar World interview next week. But it's cool for me to do it. But when I talk to whoever that guy is, when I talk to him, I guarantee he isn't really going to know who I am. He's going to be doing the interview because somebody told him he should.
Yes, that's a really good point there. I don't know why they're so far bloody behind the times because there's such a big opportunity. There's such a massive market out there for them with the let's call it the 14 to 30 age group who just don't get into the older bands and the like. And to your exact point, I know this because I've spoken to Lucas Mann about this sort of stuff. Man, they're following these bands on Instagram, Rings of Saturn, and they want to know what the hell's going on. How do you play like that? Like, how do you get to a point where you're playing like, triple arpeggios? This sort of thing.
Sure.
This is what they're interested in. They're not necessarily interested in the gear side of things. Remember those magazines when we were growing up and they talk us through from the signal through the chain, so from the guitar through to the amps. Most kids don't even buy an amp these days. That's the crazy thing.
I know. It's true. It's true. It's more affordable to get an Axe-Fx or a Kemper as a young kid and learn how to fucking, learn what the effects are and learn how to, how to manipulate them. I totally know what you mean, dude. I totally know.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
It is what it is. I mean, I think that guitar is going in a direction that was pretty unpredictable. And I've watched it kind of happen over the years where kids can learn how to play guitar from YouTube and from the internet. And it's made them, extremely fucking talented guitar players with, ripping fucking shred skills. I still definitely, I pride myself in the fact that I had teachers, I had guitar teachers, I had guitar magazines, and I definitely was learning how to play guitar before the YouTube era of guitar. And I always, like Randy Rhoads, he was a big influence on me, and I would always read about, he'd be on tour and he would find someone to get a lesson from wherever he was. He would find a guitar teacher and get a lesson. And that was always something that inspired me. And once I started touring, it's all right, who is fucking sick on tour? Who plays, who's ripping? I'm going to get a lesson from, every guitar player I possibly can, wherever I go, which I still feel like, so many people in our scene and in the guitar, not the magazine, but in the world of guitar, I've picked up things along the way from everybody, and it's still, it's still how I do it. It's still how I really like to do it from humans. Not I'm not really a YouTube guitar player.
Yeah, that's interesting, mate. I think if you had your own channel, you might have your own channel, but I haven't seen it. But if you did, or you do have your own channel, man, there'd be a lot of interest in that. There's a lot of kids out there that cite you specifically as an influence.
Yeah, maybe I should do it. It's kind of where it's just where my passion lies. I'd be afraid I would start it and then I wouldn't like keep going with it,
Oh
but
yeah,
maybe I should.
yeah. Oh
you
well,
know, you know what I mean?
yeah, I do.
Suicide
Yeah.
Silence already is like it's like a damn near full-time job. So, but you're right. I really like Ola England, like what he does
Hmm.
with his page. Like it's very entertaining, and he does everything from gear to looking at bands that people tell him he needs to listen to,
Yep.
and interviews and stuff. Like his page is great. But yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I should make a YouTube page or a YouTube channel.
Look, I'd love to see it, but I mean, it all just comes down to how much time you've got. You've probably got a family as well, and you're doing the band as a full time commitment. I mean, how many bloody hours are there in the day? And then there's also the energy that you've got to devote to these
I
things
know.
as well. Man, it's a balance, man. Let me tell you, in my 40s, man, I just don't have the energy. Even though I'm
Right.
swimming and I don't even drink as much as I used to, you know what I mean? But I bloody. But they say don't drink as much and you get more energy back. I say bullshit. Sorry.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It's not true.
The booze helps. The booze helps, man. It brings the charisma out.
Does. I don't know what to say, brother. I'm with you, man. Geez, I'll just, side, go on a 90-degree tangent for a sec. But yeah, it's so true. I mean, if I didn't have alcohol occasionally to sort of look forward to at the end of a very long, long week of being yelled at by my kids
Right.
and trying to get through uni and working in my media role and all the rest of it, mate, what the hell else are we supposed to do, mate? Sit in a room by ourselves and look at a blank wall? You know what I mean? Like,
Dude, I know it. I know what you mean, man. I know what you mean. It's all about control, though.
it
It's
is.
hard.
It is, yeah. Mate, control. I might, look, I know oh gosh, I really like this album. I got to say, "Become the Hunter." Okay, but
Thanks.
I've also got to say I actually really enjoyed your last one, your self-titled one.
Oh, cool.
So I was
Cool.
really, and I had a chat to Dan Kenny about the last one when it came out. On these interview cycles. So it was a couple of years back, 2017 or so. So I guess
Mhm.
my first proper question for you is about the album. Is would you describe "Become the Hunter" as a reaction to what happened on the self-titled album?
I think everything is always kind of a reaction to what you've done prior. I think in this instance, where we were as people before we did the self-titled was kind of in an absolute like explorative area where even before we got to the fifth record, like
Hmm.
we look at, as you say, like the masters, we look at the people and the bands before us and we see what they've done. And any band that's made it to their fifth record that we really idolize, they all make a big change. Like, let's just say Metallica, first of all, they do something,
Hmm.
and they experiment and go elsewhere. And we knew that if we were going to make it to our fifth record, we were going to experiment. We were going to do something a lot different. And as far as it being, a reaction, this next record, I think the reaction is that we got all the exploration out of our system and revitalized the desire to be fucking brutal and to
Hmm.
make it be this, to do what we know we are super good at and what we're known for. If there's any kind of
Hmm.
reaction, is that if anybody was saying, that, we lost our heavy, or like, we're not like a heavy band anymore. Like our reaction is like little do you know, like, we weren't joking when we said on the last cycle that it's like we could write, a deathcore or a death metal album kind of in our sleep.
Yep.
And that's just like that isn't what we wanted to do on the last record. We didn't want to just go through the motions. So on this one, it wasn't going through the motions. It's like we know what we need to do, and we're gonna fucking do it, and we're gonna do it the best we've ever done it.
Hmm. I thought I thought you really channeled your inner Hendrix on the last album, and I think that's what I liked about it. I know I just talked about sort of, not sort of fawning over the masters and the greats, so to speak, but I loved the opening to Doris, how it sounded, you've got that wah thing going on, and then guys just cut straight into it. And one of the things that Dan told me about the album was the hometowns, I think, or your postcodes were actually printed in the liner notes, as a part of the
Uh-huh.
artwork on the album there. So it was really a statement of your own truth. And I really got that aspect of it, that it was really you guys, it was a raw offering. It was like you guys, it was like, come into the rehearsal room with us, guys. This is actually what we sound like after a few bevies, a few drinks. We're all getting along
For
really
sure.
well. And I thought it was a brutal album, man. I could still hear it was your guitar playing because I can always tell you when you play. But I thought it suffered the same fate that what poor old Morbid Angel went through with the Lud Divinum Insanus. And I've had a chat to David Vincent about it and Pete
Mhm.
Sandoval, who didn't appear on the album. And I just think it
Yeah.
was, I think people in this day and age of internet keyboard warriors and clickbait media and people hiding behind pseudonyms, it just gave them an opportunity to be fucking assholes for a period of time toward a band that didn't deserve it. And both yourself and Morbid don't deserve to be treated that way, man. And that was my feelings then, and it certainly is my feelings now about the whole thing. So I guess to cap things off, mate, do you think you'll be playing some material from the self-titled album when you do eventually do the tour for Become the Hunter?
It depends, you know. I mean, if it's a headlining show, yeah, we already have been. We got a couple shows coming up, and we have a couple songs from the self-titled record. That's the thing that the keyboard warriors and the people that maybe kind of jumped on the bandwagon to bash on us. I also will say I think because of the way that the internet reacted to the last record, I don't think that everybody really gave it a full listen. I think that a lot of people just kind of heard some of it and were like, you know what, I don't even want to give this a chance, kind of thing. But that could be an assumption.
No, I agree with you. Yeah. I think you're right.
But we toured on that record, and we played a lot of those songs live, like even Conformity and, you know, some of the really out there songs, you know, Dying in a Red Room we were playing live. And, you know, all those songs, when we were playing them on like massive stages, like doing big Eurofests in front of tens of thousands of people, you could tell there was the people in the front row that are fans of us, that maybe they would either kind of mellow out when we were playing new stuff, but then you look out at the sea of people and like those songs went over amazing.
Yeah.
And people don't get to see that. And that's one thing where, you know, we can move forward and be like, you know what, people can say whatever the fuck they want. We're still out there playing on these massive stages, playing new music, and people are going insane and really enjoying it. So, for us, you know, it's pretty obvious, you know, the last record really just wasn't a commercial success, but for us as individuals and as songwriters and as a band, like, it feels really good to have, exactly like you said, just kind of go in and not, I mean, really, we just didn't give a shit about what anybody was going to think about it. It felt good. It felt good to just let it out and just be like, you know what, like, let's get weird, you know, let's be vulnerable for a minute.
Yeah, and, I could tell that. Yeah, I guess because I've been around the block a few times, you know, and I don't remember when Cold Lake came out by Celtic Frost, but it's actually my favourite album from them. Yeah. And I'm not being an edgelord. Right. I'm not trying to be different about things. I mean, I love all of their stuff, by the way, but I find, and the reason why is I like it when music finds a place in my life in the day-to-day, and I listen to Cold Lake whenever I'm in the gym, the rare times I'm in the gym, because I mainly swim, and that's where that album really helps me. So, and I think your album here is going to find a place in people's life in a similar way. God knows how it'll work out for people, but I think I saw the clickbait media, I saw a lot of the comments, I saw the usual websites bash on it, and I thought, oh, that's going to it'll affect sales, and B, more to the point, the reason it'll affect sales is because people won't listen to it. They'll be afraid to listen to it because they're told it's not an album that lives up to the standard of material that came before, but it actually is. And I think, if anything, mate, you've doubled down with a big fuck you with this new album, Become the Hunter. I feel like, I don't know whether I'm comfortable saying it's your heaviest album, but it's bloody near your heaviest album ever.
Yeah, thanks, man.
You know, that's really saying something with you guys too.
Yeah, I think what it is with this one is like I said, we knew what we needed to do. You know, there was definitely no doubt about, you know, where we were going to be going with the record. So straight out of the gate, you know, we knew, you know, where it was going. And we actually wrote way more material than we ever have before. And we had to narrow it down to what was going to be on the record. We had, damn near 20 fully written songs. And, for us, it's usually not that way. Usually we got, an extra 2 or 3 songs, but this one, it was like, we had plenty of stuff to choose from. And I think that just kind of goes to show, like, I feel like the last record helped us as a band. Like, we had it. We're just like, the riff's got to be ferocious, and the whole entire record has to fucking, you got to get done listening to it and want to listen to it again.
Yeah, and look, I've got to ask, what was the conversation? Oh, don't share this with me if you can't, or you don't want to, mate. But getting Jerry back into the fold, mate, has that made a difference to things?
Yeah. Jerry, when we got rid of him and we were working with another manager, it really kind of came down to how much of a priority we felt like we were. And Jerry was working with a number of bands at that time. And we just felt like we needed to do something different since we were doing something different musically. And, in the end, it was apparent Jerry is the guy for the job. He's been the guy for the job. And the dudes that are in the band and the dudes that are working with us behind the scenes, like, this is our team, and it's going to be this way forever. It's very obvious to us now. Like, Jerry is the 6th member of the band, and he's a great creative force. And I mean, I'll say it here. I haven't said this at all in any interviews yet, but Jerry helped write the lyrics on this record. I mean, Jerry named No Time to Bleed, Jerry's been a part of this band for a long, long time. And, I think the relationship now that we have fired him and brought him back, it's stronger than it's ever been.
Sometimes you got to do that. You got to spend time apart in order for the relationship to become stronger. And sometimes that's the only way that it happens. And it's very clear based on the strength of Become the Hunter that. I just think everything's worked out the way it was meant to. I think that for fans like myself who wanted to hear a different side and who like it when bands experiment and do some different... Well, not experiment, you know what I mean? Do something that isn't part of the norm. There you go, because it certainly wasn't an experimental record by any means with their self-titled album. But the fact that, you've come back here with an album that, man, I mean, if any of these... standard, metal websites, I won't name them, the ones I'm talking about again. But if they heap any shit on you for this being a reaction, you literally cannot win, can you? Meaning that if they say, oh, you're just trying to get back all of the old fans that like the heavier stuff being back in, I mean, it's catch-22 then, really, isn't it? I mean, you can only ever be yourself. And I think with this partnership that you've got there with Jerry being so fruitful and it being a very honest partnership from the sound of things, man, mate, how many albums have you got out now? This is your 7th album. Mate, just look forward to the next 7 and just look forward to listening to so many crushing riffs coming from you.
Dude, yeah, I really appreciate that, man. Yeah. I definitely, kind of saying more about, you saying my riffs and, inspiring, the next generation of players. And you were talking about Dimebag. I still, I've said this a number of times, like, my playing and what I try to do, writing music, it also is to inspire players and inspire people to write music. And I still am trying to write the riff that when you hear it, you fucking love it. And if you've never played guitar before, you basically can pick the guitar up and play that riff first try because it's just so simple, but so fucking heavy. Yes. Dime did it. Iommi did it. I think Jim Root from Slipknot has done it. There's more, but Trey has done it. I think Where the Slime Lives is the closest he's got on some of those, simple, effective riffs. Yeah. Trey might be a little bit a further one, but that's inspiration is key for me, because if it wasn't for inspiration, I wouldn't be playing guitar. I had to have been inspired to have ever wanted to pick it up.
It's interesting, isn't it? I had a conversation with with Mantis from Venom many years ago, and I said that exact same thing that you just said then. I was a bass player, and I was trying to figure out how to play guitar, and I picked up my Randy Rhoads V copy, the V that he was endorsed by him, and I started bashing that out, and I thought, holy shit, I can actually play black metal. So I thought I must be doing
Yeah.
something okay if I can get that through. But the thing is that, and it's such an important point, this one here, and I've said this many times on the podcast series, man, is that heavy metal for many of us is like, it's as essential as food or water. It's just a part of what makes us who we are. And it doesn't mean we look like metalheads. It's just what makes us tick internally, and it's what we look forward to. And being able to listen to some of your favourite music and then being able to recreate that on an instrument, it's that sort of thing that gets people out of really difficult spots in their life. And I hope that's not too big a jump to make or too big a conclusion to make with some of these things, because I truly believe that when people are creative and when they're inspired to be creative, mate, they have a better sense of well-being, and overall they become better contributors to society. And that is the way that I believe heavy metal is a total benefit to society.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. I mean, I feel like, it always makes me think about, hearing those kind of things makes me think about when I was first starting to play guitar and how much it meant to me to be able to recreate, a riff that, someone that gave me to these strong emotions, whether it was Dimebag or Randy Rhoads, or Tony Iommi, like really those, and Angus Young. I mean, those four dudes were the reason why I wanted to start playing guitar. And, you're saying becoming better contributors to society. Like if it wasn't for those dudes and like me learning how to play guitar because of them and playing those riffs, like, I don't even want to know what the fuck I would be, where I would have gone,
Yeah.
Like it made me able to, it gave me confidence to get on stage, to play guitar, to have a reason to be, to like, what was I before I was a guitar player? Like, I don't even know,
Yeah.
So
I get it, man. I get it. And that's the point, man, is that, it gives you a career, but it's just, I mean, I talk to so many fans about these things, mate, and a lot of them, some fans have depression, they might have a disability, they might have something else going on in their life that is just generally making them feel like shit. And it is heavy metal that helps them get through it. It's not Prozac, it's not some bullshit farmer push drug. It's heavy metal and reaching for that. And it's not even the lyrics, to be honest, man. It's the inspiration from the music. Like I was saying,
Sure.
and I think that's so important. And like, there are no white papers on this shit, man. Academic reports and this stuff, man. But I might be the first person to really start to try to dive into it, because that's where I want to do that. The overall benefit from, say, let's focus on your guitar playing. But what's the overall benefit to society in general from your guitar playing? It'd be huge, man. It's impossible to measure it in using traditional analytics, if you like, man. But just talking to people, man, I know it's there. That. So,
sure.
It's
yeah. That also, that makes me think about, the other end of it, where there's the fans that are getting, some benefit out of, being able to enjoy the music. But I also think for me personally, and I know that this is the way that it works for a lot of, heavy metal musicians, people usually tend to say, heavy metal musicians are some of the nicest people you'll meet, and I think that what happens is that, we usually we're paying attention to what goes on in the world. We've had our traumas, we've had our mental issues, and we've had our own, whatever the kind of bullshit that happens in our lives and in the world, we mentally digest that and we turn that into the art that we create. And, if it wasn't for having the outlet of playing guitar and making heavy metal, we wouldn't be able to contribute to the fans and to their, mental state and bring them that joy. It takes all of the negative to create the positive, to continue creating more positive. And, I think about that, just the transference of energy, all throughout the world, through fucking guitar, through heavy metal. And yeah, I mean, I love all kinds of music, but it's like, dude, if it wasn't for fucking heavy metal, dude, where the hell would I be?
Yeah, very true, brother. I know. Well, mate, you're bloody good at it. I mean, you really are one of the leading lights, as I say, man. I mean, I've had a chat to so many fantastic artists already in January. The guys in Sepultura, the guys in Corrosion of Conformity, and I had a chat to them literally days before poor old Reed passed away. And the thing
Yeah.
is, and it's really interesting. And then this year alone, meaning to January, February to date, all through January, who have we lost? We've lost Neil Peart. We've lost Sean Reinert from death and sinning.
Yeah.
That was a big loss, man.
No.
And I think those losses, mate, they go off to the great gig in the sky. They just remind us to cherish what we've got. And that'd be my message to anybody who is a part of heavy metal media, and they're like, support the bands. Like they might be doing something different or what have you, but really get behind the bands and don't politicize things, for God's sakes. Not everything has a political angle. Not everything is
Right.
about privilege or all this other bullshit that gets spoken about in 2019 and 20 and beyond. And I know it's going to be a very interesting year, aka difficult year, with the American presidential election as politics seeks to divide people yet again. And people are other. They're called rednecks if they vote for Trump or what have you. It's all bullshit as far as I'm concerned, and it gets away from us. It takes us away from our core sense of humanity and our togetherness that we really should have. And I think heavy metal needs to be really a leading light in that regard.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, when it comes to music, politics in general, I just think it's just such a strange thing that people concern themselves so much with world politics, when it's like, really, how much does the leader of any country bother you or really affect you at all? It really does not. It is, if anything, it's up to you how much you decide they affect you, because it's not like they're literally not. They're not doing anything to you directly. Your local politics, whoever your fucking city councilman or whoever, that they have more effect on you. And when it comes to music and that, it's like people need to pay attention to the art in general. The arts are what is affecting the world on a grand scale. The artists and what they are doing, they've always been the ones that are starting the grassroots movements of everything. And it's these massive fucking political parties and whatever, they need the endorsements by the artists to fucking have to get the votes and stuff like that. It's like it's a strange push pull that we have, where it's like we think that the governments have a massive effect on us, but dude, they don't.
No, I agree with you totally. And I'm back at uni these days, you see, in my 40s, with a lot of the 18 and 19-year-olds, and they get very political, right? And they get right into it. And I said, look, it's a two-party system. I said, when even at your young age, 18, 19, has your life really been that different under either government? And in Australia, we've had changes of governments, left and right-wing governments, but we're a lot more central, if you like. We're a centre-right and a centre-left, And there's not the tendency in our major left-wing party, if you like, for it to go to that Marxist angle that I sometimes see going on in the States, and particularly in the UK. And they pick up on all these hashtags, and they pick up on all of these buzzwords and statements, all of the usual ones. And I say, but exactly to your point, I say, but how is this truly affecting your life or the people's lives around you? So, and my point around that would be, I can see them getting really upset by it, how it's affecting them in their emotional state. And it's like this young lady, Greta, whatever, she can do whatever she needs to do. Her parents are, getting her to do all sorts of stuff. But I look at a young lady like that, and she doesn't look 16 to me. She looks a lot younger than 16, but whatever. I think maybe a young lady like that should probably be figuring out her way in the world in a bit of a different way than the way she is at the moment. That's only my opinion, of course, and I won't push you into an opinion on that one there. But I look at that I look at that as a parent, mate, and I get a bit concerned, to be frank with you. Because I'd never put my daughters in that situation, that where they become a global spokesperson at that age. If they're in their 20s or 30s, God, their decisions, their mistakes, you know what I mean? But bloody, as a 16-year-old, I look at it and think there's no point in young people getting so caught up in other people's issues, so to speak, when they don't have their head around all of the data. They've only got the data that they're being given or being told, which I suppose is like the rest of us anyway. But when they're young, they have a tendency to become quite extreme.
yeah, it's unfortunate that the influence that has too on a global scale, because then you just get the younger and younger of people that are, again, like, we're discussing, being concerned about things that they shouldn't be concerned about because it really isn't affecting them directly. And whether or not, Greta is, I don't want to say that she's a puppet or that, she's being told what to say, because I don't know the truth. But I mean, I read some of it, or, George Soros and, who's funding some of these things. And, I don't know the truth. I don't think anybody knows the truth. And when someone's trying to tell you that they do know the truth, usually you should just fucking stop listening to them. But
run the other way.
Exactly. But it's unfortunate because it feels as though she is influencing the youth to have a certain stance. And when the youth has, a voice to say this certain things, it's tugging at a certain emotional state of, the world. And we shouldn't be exploiting the youth to get messages out.
Agreed.
It's just super. Everything is at an extreme, and it always will be at an extreme, because people talk about the future, but there is no future. There is right now. We're living in the future. And if you don't really realize that, then, I think you're kind of blind to it, because we're living in some strange times, and there's no telling what really is going to happen. I'm all for Bernie, dude. And if I think if Bernie can take this one, that's going to change. That's going to change, I think, the viewpoint of how people are looking at the United States, because right now we're out of it, dude.
there's a lot of Australians that want Tulsi to get in, actually. You know that? I don't know. To be honest, me as well. I would love to see her as a US president. The whole idea that, and I've always made this distinction with people, especially when I'm traveling. You cannot blame the American people for decisions the American government makes. Okay, she's somebody very acutely aware of that. But you know what I mean. You've traveled a lot. You hear the American bashing and all the rest of it, and people with a brain don't buy into it because they understand that the American administration actually isn't representative of the people. The decisions they make aren't representative of the people, and there's too many examples to point out, like the Iraq War being a big one. The majority of people would never have supported that. There's no way. There's no bloody way. And that's not a left-wing or a right-wing take. That's just a factual take. There wasn't the data there to go to war or invade Iraq, whatever it was.
100%.
And I think Tulsi's got a finger on the pulse with that. And I think as an outsider, that's the big thing that people have with the United States, is focus on helping people in the US, forget about all of these bloody regime-changing wars, and going into other parts of the world and sending in these poor bastards. When I say poor bastards, I mean that with the greatest of respect, the American troopers, to be shot at in these faraway places. Stop doing it, for God's sakes, because it's not helping. It doesn't help anybody.
No, I know it. Yeah, no, she's great, and that's, her whole thing is ending the regime-changing wars, and that's definitely. I hate to get kind of conspiracy on it. I just feel like there's stronger powers that's not what they want. That's there's too much money to be made for us, supposedly, in being at war all the time, or at some sort of Cold War state. Our budget is more than 50% military. And that's the way that people want to keep it. It's the way that people want to keep it, and it's unfortunate. And like you said, I've traveled and been traveling, and I was traveling when Bush was president, and I thought that was bad. And now it's like, I straight up just tell people I'm Canadian. I don't even bother with saying I'm American.
Wow, shit. Yeah. That's not good, brother. Yeah. No, that sucks, man. You got to be... I'm an Australian patriot at the end of the day. I don't blame anybody for being a patriot of their great country, wherever they're from. But that sucks from the perspective. I know, I understand the point, because there's certain countries where it's... you're basically putting your life in jeopardy if you say you are from the United States. And you guys too are, so not necessarily, don't go to some of those countries, but you experience it to a lesser degree, is what I'm trying to say there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's mate. So it's all, mate. give us a couple of pints, and a few talking points, and we could solve the world's problems. I reckon between you and I.
Yeah, maybe a couple hits of LSD, and we'll solve world hunger.
Well, mate. Let me tell you, that's another conversation. That's where Andrew Yang, I think, has brought some. I think it's Andrew Yang who brought up some really interesting points around that. I'm pretty sure Tulsi's open-minded about that as well, which is very interesting to me personally. You know,
I didn't hear Andrew Yang. I didn't hear Andrew Yang talk about psychedelics.
Oh,
I don't. I missed
I
that.
could be wrong then, mate. Sorry. Yeah, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and the interview subjects usually blend into one after the other after a period of time. But any
No, you could be right. You could be right. Andrew Yang had me for a while, but if it comes to the Democratic Party, like just the, I mean, Bernie's been going at it, dude. Like he's always been one of my favorite dudes, and I never thought he would actually have like a chance. And just seeing where he's at right now, it's like it would be great to see him win.
I think he'll give him a go. I don't know whether he'll win, to be honest, mate. I think that Trump might have it.
No.
I mean, everything that the Democrats have done has backfired. Every single bloody thing. They are literally. It's like Trump has given them the textbook of how not to beat him, and they're following every point in that to an inevitable conclusion.
Yeah.
That, and first thing is, I question Bernie's age. Okay, not his temperament or his intellect, but his age. I don't get.
He's only 4 years older than Trump.
Yeah, I know, but he looks so much older, doesn't he? And that's where that's the thing I look at it. But I think if it was, say, for example, a Bernie Tulsi 1-2, mate, I think you might have a real fight on your hands there, and that's what I hope happens for the good people in the United States. I doubt it will. But
I doubt it will too. I don't think the Democratic Party can come together. And that's the biggest problem. I think that the Democrats are against themselves, amongst themselves, is what it seems like.
Yeah. Well, you've got the same issue here in Australia, where you've got, basically, if you vote left-wing these days, you're generally in an inner-city area living in a multi-million-dollar house. Not generally, I shouldn't say that, but that's the impression that people have. They call them cafe-sipping socialists, latte-sipping socialists. And a lot of the traditional blue-collar areas, semi-rural, outer suburban areas, mate, they all vote centre-right these days. You can see it in a map, the Australian electoral map. You can see it, and I think it's very similar in the United States. And until left-wing parties such as the Labor Party in Australia, the Labor Party in the UK, and also the Democratic Party in the United States, until they figure out how to appeal to that very broad church and make sure everybody's included and groups within that aren't excluded because of race or what have you, because that's what's happening. The identity politics side of it, until they figure that side of it out, man, I just don't see them ever getting back in.
True. Well, it's so tough. I think of America and, traveling throughout America, it's dare I say, it feels like we are not one country. It feels like there's such a divide in the kinds of people that we have. And, I don't want to bash the Bible Belt or the middle of America, but it's the difference between them and people on the coasts. That's where all the blue is, and that's where there's this massive divide, and that's where Trump wins. That's where it's just a different spot. It's, I don't know how else to put it. It feels different. Same with Texas. I feel like Texas should be its own freaking country.
Yeah, well, you're looking. It's funny. I was just looking at the way the US voted in 2016 when Trump got in, and to your point, the left and right coasts, so the east and west coast, they're blue, and just all the middle, except for Colorado. I think I could be wrong. Colorado, I think, was Democratic, but the rest of it was blue, red, being Republican. Yeah. For those who aren't familiar with the color association there. But yeah, it was really interesting to see that, and there's definitely an us versus them mentality emerging there. And I think you've got establishment candidates such as Elizabeth Warren, and she's a bit of a disaster, really. You got Joe Biden, who is another disaster. He's not even compass, to be honest with you. I mean, the YouTube clips that I've seen of him saying some truly bizarre things and sniffing young girls' hair is really bizarre. What the fuck's going on with that? And then the Republicans just seem to get a jump on everybody and put very begrudgingly, put a non-establishment candidate in because the regular people seem to view the Bushes, the Clintons, the Bidens, the Romneys as part of the same cabal. They seem to not associate it anymore with partisanship, meaning Democratic or Republican. They just see that they're at the same table, so they're trying to vote for anti-establishment candidates, which is why I think to your fella there, Sanders will be the Democratic nominee. I can only really see that happening. The people are fed up and they want to give him a go. And he would have beaten Trump last time if he'd gotten in, if it wasn't for all of the shit that the Clintons pulled. He would have gotten in. He was more popular than she was. People forget that. And then I won't go into the detail about what happened, mate. Anybody can read up about it. It's there. I mean, but, it's a very unusual situation. Effectively, I feel democracy was hijacked through the Clintons bunting out Sanders like they did. Because I don't know what sort of a president he would have been, but he really should have been the nominee in 2016, as I believe he will be this time around. So, mate, maybe you'll get your wish. Maybe a miracle will happen, and maybe he'll get in.
Well, anybody's better than Trump. That's pretty much that's how it's going to go. And if Trump wins again, I very well could just leave America.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot, man. Yeah. It's I think it's just very strange to see somebody who was a reality TV star and son of a real estate mogul who just sort of managed to keep his money. The big thing about Trump, though, is he just understands the media. That's his game, the media. And
he does. Yeah,
that's it. He understands the media better than any president basically ever. And his base is he communicates to his base through social media. It's fucking weird. it's
super weird.
It's just we've arrived at this very funny point, mate, in 2020. But we're just here to participate, not make the rules up.
It's only going to get weirder, dude. It's only going to get weirder. You've seen Idiocracy?
I have, but remind me again. It's a couple of years old now, isn't it? Idiocracy.
It was Mike Judge, the guy that made Beavis and Butthead. He made a movie about in the future how it's like only stupid people were breeding, and basically like the president, his name was like Hormel Mountain Dew. Like he was owned by all the corporations.
Yes.
And he was also like a wrestler, like a WWF wrestler. And I mean, we really are living in that sort of era, and I wouldn't doubt that Trump's influence on celebrities. I almost feel like more celebrities are going to be running for president in the next decade.
Yeah, that's a worry. That's a massive worry. That one. The celebrities are just good to my exact point. They're just good with the media. They're not good with policy or anything else, or understanding what the hell's going on in China or Russia or anywhere. They don't understand foreign policy, so they've got to bring these people in who claim to understand it because they're career politicians, and they go, well, if you think that's what I should do, that's what I'll do.
Right.
Yeah, it's mate, I don't know. As I say, brother, I'm with you on the LSD front. Well, mate, my view ultimately is that it's a private property issue, and people should be allowed to do all of these psychedelics, which are very different to methamphetamines and those insidious substances, mate. These give you a window to the soul, LSD and ayahuasca. It almost should be something that you do once you leave school, as a young man or woman, to gain some insight, wisdom.
I feel like there should be a global day where it's accepted to do it, and everyone should be aware that everyone can do it, and it's just a global holiday that if you choose to do it, then you choose to do it, and I think it could really raise the consciousness of the whole entire planet, almost like mass meditation. I think it would be great, and I think we're getting closer and closer to the acceptance of it. I mean, already in our country we've got them doing studies on psilocybin, and like MDMA is getting closer. And I know MDMA is a touchy one, but Paul Stamets, who this guy is?
No, tell me, go for it.
Paul Stamets is a mycologist. He's the mushroom guru. Like he's not only an advocate for psilocybin, but because of him, I know about all these mushroom strains and reishi and turkey tail and lion's mane and all these kinds of things that
Yeah.
they've done so much research on, you know, the health benefits of them. And, you know, yeah, Paul Stamets, just watch, you know, his TED talk on how fungus will save the world, and it'll blow your mind. Like he's got remedies on how to like clean up the oil spills in the ocean with mushrooms or with fungus, how to get ants out of your house, how to get rodents out of your house, you know, all these different things that just it'll blow your mind. He's really the man.
You're giving me my afternoon reading, and my daughter's birthday is on tomorrow, or Monday, but we're having a party tomorrow. I've got to put together a little car for her that we've got, mate. But you can guess what I'm going to be listening to in the background now, whilst I'm putting that thing
You'll
together.
love it. You really will love it. If I'm not playing guitar or fucking thinking of riffs, I'm listening to podcasts too, and I'm checking out all these kind of. There's just a lot of knowledge out there these days, you know, all politics aside, all that fucking bullshit, like the internet, podcasts, you know, everything that's available. It's like you're holding right now. I'm talking to you on a supercomputer that I could literally research anything I want to right now.
Yeah, I know.
Which is pretty freaking amazing.
Oh, it's incredible. And just to your point about podcasting, you know, I've listened to so much of my understanding, my awareness certainly was being raised by Joe Rogan and the people that he was talking to about psilocybin and all of the adjacent compounds, if you like, and then diving into some of that one there. The problem in Australia here, it's illegal, so I mean, even if you were going to try to find something like that, you run the gauntlet, really. And when you've got a family, you've got to be very careful of these things, as you can appreciate. But it certainly got me to a point where I was like, well, I mean, it's not that I don't believe that people suffer depression. I do believe that, but I think a lot of the general malaise that is throughout society can be alleviated by being matched with, and this is where I think it's headed, mate. By being matched with, you talk about lion's mane mushrooms. All these mushrooms do something different. They give you a different experience. There will be a chemist, let's call it a chemist because it is a scientific process, that will marry an individual up and actually treat the symptoms with a specific type of mushroom. Mate, and it's MDMA it was originally produced, I understand, as an antidepressant, wasn't it? And it was it just became a bit of a party drug, but its whole purpose was to treat depression and symptoms of malaise. And somehow we've gone away from that, and we treat these things as criminal substances. And of course, by treating them as criminal substances, you just attract more people who like criminal substances. I don't know how else to put it, you know. And until we sort of, as a society, grow up, and that's really what it is. Have a mature, really think about these things, and have a look at what has happened in the past through the temperance movement, which led to abolition, which of course led to the bloody mafia and their reign of terror. And now, of course, these days, you've got the bloody cartels there in Mexico who have long tentacles in the United States. And until you can actually have a rational conversation about legalizing these substances, and marijuana's a massive one, but I don't take any of the other stuff, cocaine or what have you, but there's got to be a conversation around the fact that people have an insatiable appetite for these things. So how the hell can we give it to them without creating a cartel-like situation? Because by prohibiting these things, it's hurting society because people aren't getting medicine, in my view. But also, two, you're creating these criminal organisations that are ferocious, like the cartel situation where they're overrunning the government in many states and provinces in Mexico. And we've just got to grow up about these things, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, and as you were talking about podcasts, I'm sure you listened to, I think his name was Ed Calderon. He's a Tijuana, I believe he was a police officer in Tijuana. He was on Joe Rogan recently.
Yeah, I did listen to that one. That's a great one. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, and like to kind of like touch on what he's talking about, and I see it and I know it. I live in California, and you know, we're like the melting pot of marijuana. Like so much weed is grown in California and illegally. And now it's not federally legal, but it is recreationally legal in California, and the legalization of it. I know for sure I live in an area where cartel now can come and they can go buy property and they can legally grow weed and the cartels don't grow weed or marijuana in Mexico anymore. They converted all of their grows into poppies, and they're making heroin. So all of the weed that the cartels used to grow in Mexico, they come over to California and grow it, and now in Mexico they're producing more
Heroin.
opiates.
Yeah.
And now there's this opiate epidemic, and it's directly because of this kind of miscommunication or ignorance of our politics and their politics, and who knows what kind of corruption is behind all of that shit. But I mean, it's real life. The cartels are fucking scary shit, and I live in California. They're here. They're not. It's not something that's the local politics that that I am aware of that affects me on the day to day. Like there's a city right over here called Anza that they do sweeps and they do raids out there, and they're trying to shut down, cartel growers. They're trying to shut them down.
Yeah.
But they got infinite money, and they end up shutting down, like, to me, I would call them innocent people. That it's like, yeah, you got 2 acres and you're growing weed, and yeah, you're selling weed, but you're not a real criminal. You're just trying to make a living.
Yeah.
But there's people, there's straight up fucking evil people over here that are, they're straight cartel people from Mexico. Just maybe they're even on guerrilla land. They're not even paying for it. They just go fucking.
That is exactly what they do, brother. Yeah, another was a park ranger that was on Joe Rogan's show, was talking about how he stumbled across rediverted creeks and small rivers and the like, that they were growing them on national parks in the United States. The cartels are growing marijuana and probably other things on national parks in the United States. And this is a ranger who just has a buckshot rifle or what have you on his back, coming across very sophisticated growth operations, and they're using all sorts of chemicals to enhance the growth too. So when that shit hits the market, mate, it is not organic marijuana you're smoking, or in your tincture. You're taking some pretty bad shit along with your marijuana too, mate. That'll probably all these unintended side effects and consequences. And the cartels make ISIS blush.
Right.
You've probably seen Best Gore, the website Best Gore. I mean, occasionally I'll go on there just to remind myself that the world is a very dangerous place. And the things that I have seen the cartels do to people, mate, ISIS couldn't even do them in their wildest dreams. And
no way.
Just the families, man, the fucking families that get caught up in this stuff. And I just feel so, I don't know I don't want to say, okay, of course I feel sorry for them, but I feel helpless. I feel like these are people that just have lost the geographic lottery, and they're born in Mexico in an impoverished area, and they're forced into working for the cartels. And if one person from the village talks to the police or what have you, then effectively the whole village gets annihilated. And people aren't aware of this, man, what's going on down there. And a lot of it is because of prohibition of products and substances in the United States and in the Western world. And I know the cartel have got operations in Australia, mate. Can you believe that?
Oh, yeah. I know the cartels are much larger than just, a drug trafficking organization. They've and I think he talks about it on that podcast too. But it's like, I don't even want to like divulge in like the people that I know and the things that I've learned from real life, directly talking to people. It's like cartels own businesses or are invested in businesses all over the world. They're not just illegal, cash businesses. They're like taxed, real life.
They're smart.
They're everywhere. Yeah. They're everywhere. They're very smart. Yeah. But you talk about the Mexican cartel, but it's, you could probably say the same thing about many governments. The Russian government, the American government, every government, out there. You could basically just call them, a legitimized cartel. The corporations are the evilest ones.
Yeah, every government serves the ruling interest, doesn't it? Meaning the partisan ruling interest, and they just feather their nest to try to keep themselves in power and hang on to power at all costs. We see that constantly, whether it's a democracy or whether it's China. China recently, Xi Jinping there has recently introduced, I don't know what you'd call it, legislation or what have you, whatever their equivalent is in a communist country. He's the supreme leader these days, man. I don't even think that there's a term. I think you removed the term of office for the. Do you call it the president? I think you call it the president or the prime minister in China, one of the two. Yeah, yeah. It's a very unusual situation in a communist country for somebody to further secure power because they've basically got power absolute. And this is about an individual, and I think it's very true, man. And I think it all, just to bring it full circle, I think everything we talk about, man, there's a lot that goes on in the world, man, that especially as a parent as I am, that it's not about being concerned, but I have to concern myself with it in terms of I have to raise my awareness about these things. But for me personally, it's music that gets me by. You know what I mean? I listen to Joe talking to all sorts of different guests and a heap of other podcasts, Sam Harris, Dave Rubin, whoever else it might be, man. And a lot of the things that they bring up, man, if you focus on them for too long, man, you're pretty much diving for a beer straight away just to sort of take the edge off things, man. But you don't have to do that. Music's there for you. And I think that's the big point. No matter what part of the political divide you're on, no matter what you truly believe in, if something is causing you internal grief and turmoil, then music is a thing that can at least help you in some way get through that. And I think in this day and age, man, with, in Southern California there and, is it Phoenix? Is that not Phoenix, is Arizona the state next to California or is that Nevada?
Both.
Yeah. Well, I know you see it. You see what you probably suspect are cartel operations going on around you, and in those three places, in the three places there I mentioned. So, man, what do, man? You can't control these things. You can just hope that ruling interests have the broader interests at heart, and maybe they don't. And apart from that, mate, in your case, just keep on crafting vicious and brutal heavy metal, mate, that the masses love.
That is the name of the game, dude. Yeah, I mean, I a long time ago, I discovered something called the Tao, and I don't know if you've ever read the Tao before.
I've heard of it. Yeah,
it's an old Chinese. It's a book of short poems, and the Tao spoke to me so hard. And one of the main things that it said was, if you don't concern yourself with things that you cannot change. Mm-hmm. And that's that. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but that has been my, one of my main, what's the word I'm looking for? Like my ethos.
Sure. Yeah.
And also, to not be competitive. And when it comes to music, I can affect music, and that's something that I have, somehow I've been blessed with the ability to affect some sort of the metal history. And in my own way, I am non-competitive with it. I just contribute to it. And that's something that I'm extremely grateful for and humbled by. And that's what I'll do for life. And I try to bring a positive energy to it, no matter how brutal and aggressive and potentially violent or vulgar, what it is that I'm putting out. It comes from a place of peace, and it comes from a place of caring about humanity. And, no matter how, deep the rabbit hole is and how far the walls are away from, my ability to climb out of it, like, no matter what, that rabbit hole is resulting in fucking riffs and fucking sick ideas that, again, they come from a place of peace. So,
well, love your work, mate. I better leave it there. But my final question for you is, I usually do these things and intend on releasing them as a podcast episode, but mate, I have to give you the courtesy, mate, of asking you if you want me to release this as a podcast episode, given the amount of things we've covered, or do you want me to do an edit and send it through to you? And if you don't like it, mate, I definitely won't release it.
I mean, I'm fine with any of it. I'm an open book. I don't really give a shit. I'm me, and I've been that way forever. So if you want to do a podcast with it and release it how it is, that's totally fine with me.
What I love about doing this, man, is people have been given now the extra dimension to you and to the band as well. And I think that's what people love about podcasts, mate, for all of the reasons that we've spoken about. Well, we like podcasts as well, man. So, look, I really appreciate that, brother. I always give the artists the option there when we've gone into politics, and more often than not, the answer's no, and I always respect that. But, mate, it's a thrill for me to be able to release something like this so that people can hear that you have an opinion on things, an informed opinion on things, alongside of being an excellent guitarist.
Thanks, man. Yeah, yeah, no problem. I'm usually not one to talk about politics or like really have politics, be involved in suicide silence. But at the same time, like if it happens, it happens very rarely, and it's totally fine with me.
Sweet, yeah. Well, mate, I really hope we can catch up when you come to Australia and just have a beer. Have a beer together, mate.
Oh, that'd be great.
It'd be awesome to do that. But look, it goes without saying, congratulations on an epic career to date, and long may you guys reign. I mean, on the strength of this latest album, man, you guys are going to be around for a hell of a long time, of course. But of course, you've got the back catalogue there. But just this new album, man, it's really something special. And I'm not just saying that. It's probably my favourite album from you guys so far. It must be said. And I still listen to the self-titled album. I had it on last night. And man, I just think with what you guys are doing, mate, and your contribution to heavy metal, mate, it's just a really vital and important thing, man. So thanks very much for doing what you've been doing.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that so much, man. Yeah, and hopefully we can catch up.
That'd be nice, brother. No worries. All right, well, good luck with everything and chat again soon, maybe.
Cool, man. Thank you so much.
Okay, catch ya. You've been listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online, and my name, of course, is Andrew Mackay-Smith. That interview subject was the great Mark Heylmun from Suicide Silence. Thanks for listening.